came this far, we endured this long.
I know, it's resilience, right? But the beauty of this is we have an opportunity, outrageously lucky for us to meet so many wonderful people with so many incredible stories that's been sharing with us. So today we're talking about the topics that is probably near and dear to many people who have parents and even spouses that going into that route. It's called Alzheimer, where your brain is slowly deteriorated and to the point that it's really hard to watch your loved one at the point that they don't recognize you, and that's really a broken heart topic. A very heavy, and we are so fortunate to have Dennis here. Is going to share with us his journey and his endurance and his resilience while he was taking care of his wife. So, Dennis, so glad. But like any day, we're gonna kick off the show. I know we still have 2 minutes early before the top of the hours, but we're gonna get going so we can get more time to talk to Dennis.
Great.
Awesome. All right. So I know my job. I need to kick out. So
That's
leaders
your
and
job, yes.
my job is to kick off the show. And I just want to take a very short, brief introduction so that we have plenty of time for our guest to share his story. I'm Sarah M. I grew up in Cambodia. Unfortunately, I have to live through the horrible experience during the communist, the killing fields, genocide era, and it's very challenging. I almost did not make it, but thank goodness I'm here. So that's the good news. Good news that I did not disappear. I show up and I was able to escape from the captivity and then finally escape from Cambodia. And since I arrived in this country 40 years ago, I cannot imagine
I
40
know, time
years.
flies.
I live in this
Time really
country much
flies.
longer than I have been in Cambodia, but it's a beautiful place and people are wonderful. So I am so grateful that I'm here to meet a lot of wonderful people. So that's all I want to say, and just want to let people know that I have my book. This is my book, How I Survived the Killing Fields, and it's available on my website, sarahm.com. Now that I have my book, guess what? People want to hear me talk. They don't want to read it. So I can do both. You know, you can read my book or hear me talk. So reach out to me or Lee. We both can help you. Thank you. Back
Yeah.
to you.
The beautiful thing is sometimes when we going through any set of trauma, it is really hard to tell our story. But at some point, it is such a relief um, to be able to get it out so we can help more people. So the purpose of us writing a book and speaking is just that we are hoping that we can also inspire other people on their difficult journey to know that there will be an end. There will be a day that we can look back and say that whatever we had, it was somewhat a blessing, because if I didn't cross the ocean to get out of Vietnam with my parents, with hundreds of other people at that time, we will never have today. So all the glorious has to come from a suffering somewhere. Not that all the glorious have to be suffering, but if you go through a suffering period, you will value and you will appreciate that glorious point a lot more. And that's what I treasure my story. I was born in Vietnam, and I left the country in 1979 after 4 years of communists, just like Sarah. And we were labeled as boat people because that's a massive number of people who being, exodus from Vietnam through the sea route. So you can check out my story and my book and my TEDx talk on my website, leetran.com, or you can buy my ebook or my book on Amazon as well. So, there's plenty of way to connect with us. And I also speak, and I also coach people who have difficulty in their lives and they want to proactively making way to do a difference. I can help them with that as well. But today, Dennis is Dennis Dulniak. Is a new friend who is a friend from another friend that who was on our show recently, not too long ago. And Dennis has been through a journey that's quite touching, and we'd love to have him share with us about the journey that he took care of his wife. So Dennis, please give us a little bit of your background and the beginning of the journey and maybe what come out of it.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Lee and Sarah. Glad to share this, although it is a sad story. Nancy Dulniak was my wife for 47 years, and our journey in terms of the Alzheimer's route actually started in 2014 when she was sent and encountered 8 hours of intense testing with a clinical neuropsychologist upon retiring from her 40-year career as a lifelong librarian. Now, that diagnosis identified that she was having brain issues in what's called MCI, or mild cognitive impairment. And from that, we actually then took a very active role in learning as much as we could and what we could do to ward off its development. And part of that was getting involved in numerous drug trials, some of the early ones in which actually confirmed the fact that Nancy had early onset Alzheimer's, and that was confirmed in January of 2015. So for the next 7+ years, we actually had quite a good life together, or at least the first 6 of those were pre-COVID, because we really took active efforts in terms of getting her involved in brain fitness program, where she was for 4 years, stimulating her brain. We did a lot of extensive travel, cruises that included dementia-friendly cruising, a great experience that we hope we can restart once we get through this COVID pandemic. But at one point in her journey, we had decided that her progression was so hard on her and I that I made the toughest decision of placing her in a memory care community in January of 2019. And there she stayed as we then experienced COVID in March of 2020, locking us out. And so for 28 weeks, I was not allowed any visitation rights other than a call over Facebook or FaceTime, where she really struggled to communicate. And so I really had serious issues. We did have a single window visit for our 47th anniversary that I was able to peer through a window with severe vision issues because of reflection and noise on the street. But it was our time together, and I felt that there was a brief connection during that period of time that brought me hope. However, COVID, the lockout, created intense deterioration for her because of the isolation. And that's when I really got involved in the isolation kills approach that I give a lot of credit to Mary Daniel for establishing a web page called Caregivers for Compromise. And this webpage, Caregivers for Compromise, actually established groups in all states where we brought this isolation kills logo and sign to really bring awareness to
Yeah.
what was happening there.
Right.
And so I know I want to get more into that as we progress in this discussion, uh, and also talk about how the resilience that I gained through the journey
Right.
really helped me progress to where creating new activities for families and loved ones with dementia are happening.
Right. So take us back a little bit. I know that because there's many people who out there have experienced, they might understand what you're talking. For people who might not have been through this difficult journey, what is the early onset means?
Early onset Alzheimer's is what is diagnosed for anybody who is under the age of 65.
Mm-hmm.
And typically it is in the 60 to 65 category. People who are diagnosed, and that's happening more frequently now, to a young onset Alzheimer's. And that could occur even in the 30s and 40s.
Wow. Is there medication for it, or is there a symptom that it make you think that you need to get it diagnostic? I mean, what indicate that you might need to go to check out to see if you have Alzheimer?
Well, the only way of really checking out Alzheimer's is by some very intrusive procedures
Oh.
through uh, MRIs and spinal taps, which
Mm.
indicate the prospect of having Alzheimer's. In my wife's case, she did have the spinal fluid test. She did have the MRIs, which verified that yes, she had a very strong case of early onset Alzheimer's. Uh, People who encounter memory issues may think that they're in the early signs of dementia. And I urge those people to not just let it go, but talk to their primary care physician, if necessary, talk to a neuropsychologist to get themselves fully tested, especially while they're still employed.
Hmm.
Because the issue is when people in a career are encountering a big change in their functional abilities, especially when it belongs to creative activities or very data oriented,
Hmm.
where the analytical piece is starting to fail, it's a sign that there is something wrong with the brain function. Now, that is not necessarily Alzheimer's or dementia. And that's why the primary care physician can run some tests that it may be a simple vitamin deficiency.
Hmm.
It may be an action of not getting enough exercise or sleep deprivation. And so there are many causes that can enter into what may be construed as Alzheimer's and dementia. And I urge people, especially while they're still employed, to pursue that, because one of the faults that Nancy and I did was we allowed her and agreed to have her retire before we had her tested.
Hmm.
And the fact that MCI was diagnosed after she retired was a financial loss to us because she could have been applied to long-term disability.
Hmm.
All forms of dementia are considered a disability. And when people who are employed keep paying for long-term disability insurance, this would have been one way of preparing us better for retirement.
Now, at what point people have to start worried that this is just not a sleep deprived issue or just once in a while, you lose your memory? At what point, because you said that the testing can be very intrusive, so it could probably cost money to and time and worriness. So at what point that you think that people should start thinking about this is more than a regular losing our mind or brain fart or whatever that
Yep.
moment.
Yep. And certainly brain fog is something we've heard a lot of these days.
Right.
With all of the anxieties in being locked up in our houses and not
Yeah.
going out and having social integration, that's kind of put our mind in a much more dull sense.
Hmm.
And so the signs for Alzheimer's, and I'm not a doctor that can diagnose this, but I can tell you that many of us are having brain fog now to where we are forgetting things. We go into a room and don't remember why we're there.
Yeah.
It's very common. The major sign happens when we start losing direction while we're
Mm.
driving,
Ooh, yeah.
or we place items in strange places and we
Mm-hmm.
can't find them again.
Mm.
Many of us will place our keys in a place that doesn't belong and we'll find them. But if it's placed in a refrigerator or in
Ooh.
the oven, it becomes a sign that,
Oh.
oh, something may be needing to get checked out there. Uh, and in Nancy's case, she would come home from work in tears because in her job as a librarian cataloger, she was very, very precise in
Mm-hmm.
all of the coding, all of the logging, all of the major steps that she had to do as a law librarian cataloger. And so it was difficult. She would forget passwords or where how to access systems.
Yeah.
And so that was a difficult thing that unfortunately we didn't recognize early enough and get it checked out while she was still employed.
Is there a treatment out there for early diagnostic? If is there something to prove your main memory? Is ginkgo nut help?
Well, there are a lot of things that are on the market, some not FDA approved or suggested. It's really best that you get checked out by an expert, a neurologist, a psychoneurologist,
Mm.
and not just take action on your own with supplements.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a lot out there on the internet, and certainly I tried a lot with Nancy that in the interim that may have slowed things down. There are a couple of drugs that do slow some of the
Mm-hmm.
aspects of Alzheimer's and dementia, but they're not long lasting.
Mm.
Yeah,
And in
yeah.
Nancy's case, we utilized those drugs for about 3 years before we started seeing a decline in her functionality because those drugs can only last so long.
Yeah.
There has been nothing new on the market approved by the FDA in nearly 20 years.
Wow.
And dementia, Alzheimer's is a terminal disease to which there has not been a survivor, nor has there been any medical way of stopping, reversing, or eliminating this disease. And so research is needed, which is why we continue to do a lot of research studies in trying to progress science.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I believe that if you talk to a nutritionist or the health wellness expert, they will have some remedy, some food, some lifestyle that help slow down the process.
That
And
is that is correct, Sarah. It's through diet,
mhm,
exercise, and lifestyle that are the three chief things that we can do to
yes,
ward off progression of this disease.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Mediterranean diet has been known
mhm,
to be very successful in this way.
yeah,
Constant exercise of walking
Mm-hmm.
and lifestyle that reduces stress in our lives.
yes, and the food that reduce inflammation. The disease of our brain is the inflammation of the brain cell. So if we can find if we just eat the food that we know it's possible that reduce the inflammation, that would be the best way to go. Well, I'm not an expert, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but common sense, the inflammation it damage every cells of our body. But once it damage our brain cell, it's more serious.
It is indeed, and getting proper sleep
Yeah.
is what is crucial for helping the brain cleanse itself.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Sleep is the best cure of any kind of sickness.
Yeah.
And yes, totally hear you. Not that I can sleep much, but
Make you guilty?
I feel like, oh, I want to drop everything and go to sleep. But I am so sorry to hear the journey, because it is nothing harder than watching a loved one that slowly deteriorate to the point that it's like, your body is a vessel, but your soul and your memory is so much critical that make who you are. It's like, by remember who you are, know the people around you. So that journey must be really tough. For 6 years, you were holding on, and then you said that the final year, right before the COVID, was really hard, and the isolation make it even harder
Yeah.
for the recovery. So I really am sorry to hear that. But was there any quality of life that she had for the 6 out of the 7 years?
Oh,
Was it?
absolutely. One of the things that I believe is important is that getting a diagnosis early enough was significant, because then we could focus on what quality of life we could still have left,
Mm-hmm.
and what planning that can go into effect in terms of all of the matters that go with medical, legal, financial, and working on that and talking to our family and making them aware that their mom has this disease that is a terminal disease,
Right.
and there's going to be serious decline through this disease.
Right.
So, yeah, it's very important that a diagnosis happen early enough. And I used to have a pet statement that I used early on. It was that we would have good days and bad moments.
Mm.
And early on, we always had good days.
Mm-hmm.
And I minimized the bad moments.
Mm.
And as time went on, there were more bad moments, but I strove to make each day as valuable as I could.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm sure you probably, everybody probably already watched that movie, the note, something note, the
The
Notebook.
notebook.
Yes. Oh my God, that was just such a beautiful movie, and um, how you communicate with the one who actually, have there still, and the other half is being taken and robbed by the Alzheimer disease. So it's really sad. So that's just so beautiful that you established something in her honor after she passed.
Yes, matter of fact, we actually started creating a foundation while she was in her last weeks of life. And I actually was able to show her and put on her wall the logo that I was going to use for this foundation that we created. Now, Nancy is a lifelong librarian. Her first job as a teenager was a volunteer. Her
Mhm.
last job as a catalog librarian at the Florida A&M Law School. And one of our sons, over the last couple of years, had been sending books to students to teachers that he knew at the Christmas time in lieu of Christmas gifts for us and in honor of his mom.
Mm.
And she would get letters from these students thanking her for the books. Well, my sons and I came up with the concept that this was such a beautiful idea that Nancy loved,
Yeah.
that we can create a foundation, and we wanted to call it Nana's Books because she always loved the name Nana.
Mm.
And now Nana's Books Foundation is being created as a nonprofit that will be sending books to students and resources in books to school libraries of select Title I schools and some public libraries. Because we know that Title I schools tend to have students and families who are socioeconomic deprived.
Mm.
They do not have the funds to buy books. But now, with the Nana's Books Foundation, her memory and legacy will live on,
That's
her phoenix
beautiful.
will live on, and it's a beautiful thing that new books will be coming to students
Yeah.
on Alzheimer's and dementia.
Is
Because
there any particular category of the book, or what type of genre, or is there a particularly category that you accept?
Well, we will be coming up with a list of grade appropriate books
Mm,
Mm,
on
that's
Alzheimer's, dementia, and disabilities.
okay.
And so we'll be coming up with that over the next couple of months
Mm,
and then rolling this out sometime this fall, where we'll be delivering our first delivery of books to Title I schools. And it'll be a few Title I schools where Tip Nancy was either employed or working in that vicinity because this is such a beautiful area foundation. We need to expand the education of
mhm.
students and their families so that they can communicate with their
Yeah.
grandparents and parents as caregivers in the
Right.
future, since this disease has no cure or prevention to really ward it
Right.
off.
Well, that is just a beautiful way to express your love even after she's gone. It is a legacy that is for her children, and I'm sure she's smiling from ear to ears up in heaven. Yeah.
wonderful.
Um. So, Sarah, you have a question for her? For him?
Uh, let's see. Hmm. Oh yes, about the article that you have been featured in the USA
Yes.
Today. Tell us about that.
Well, I was very surprised to get my picture in
Woo!
USA Today last week Monday on an article that showcased the isolation kills two approach we had. And we know that isolation has had a significant impact on both the residents and the families of people in long-term care facilities. It's robbed them a lot of their time together at a time when they're really in their final stages of life.
Yeah.
And so I was very proud to be able to be one of 300 that were listed here in this array of signposts in the state of Florida. And again, Mary Daniel brought this forward, but the fact that the USA Today article was a national article published in not only the USA Today newspaper, but other city newspapers as well. And so we are hoping that this article and awareness will open up long-term care facilities to greater visitation.
Mm-hmm.
And just yesterday in the state of Florida, we had the Agency for Healthcare Administration release and suspend the guidelines that restricted access to long-term care facilities. And now we are waiting for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS, to release the guidelines that will now allow more open access and visitation at long-term care facilities. And I'm just thrilled that perhaps this article has made an impact
Mm-hmm.
and is helping other states, as Florida has already taken advantage of releasing the restrictions on visitation.
That's awesome.
So is that I think that law is applying to all patients, not just to Alzheimer's patient, isn't it?
That's correct. It is all long-term care
Right.
facilities, but again, it's going to be to each facility on whether or not they truly relax all
Mm-hmm.
of the restrictions that they had and
Mm-hmm.
allow people in. And we're hoping to hear more and more success stories across the country.
Yeah. It is devastating. My sister-in-law also in the long-term care, and her daughter could not able to see her or to anything, just poking around the window like you did, and just tapping on the windows, and it is just painfully suffering to see that your loved one um, feels so lonely during this. This is the time that you need your family the most, and you can't have people around you, and you don't have the quality of being a well person to even look through the window because you just in pain. And I know that they are doing it for because of COVID, but still, there got to be a way that people don't have to die alone, and because that's the worst thing in life. When you leave Earth and you don't have your loved one around you, that's just the worst. But yeah, I am happy that there's an article that has probably raised some awareness to people that they can improve the law in some way. Anything else you want to tell us, Dennis?
Yeah, one of the other resilience things that I had been doing through this disease was creating a dementia friendly dining restaurant in
Nice.
Orlando.
Oh, wow.
And
Congratulations.
we had successfully done this January of 2020. And our first restaurant happened to be a family owned and chef oriented restaurant in East Orlando called the Meatball Stop.
Hmm.
And fortunately, the owners of this also were very familiar with Alzheimer's, who lost two family members and had a third family member currently with the
Wow.
disease. And so now through this, we were able to go in and train their staff on what is different in
Hmm.
treating loved ones that have the disease and their family members so that they could enjoy having a dinner out
Hmm.
and enjoying their time together. Well, that was short lived for about 2 months
I
because
hope you
COVID.
go back up once everybody's vaccinated. Hopefully that,
That's the plan. I
yeah.
had I had lined up three restaurants just before COVID closed everything down,
Hmm.
and I will be cycling back once our community gets a better rate of vaccination among the public,
Hmm.
and our there's a reduction in the COVID cases also. That's important as well, so that restaurants feel they can open up and safely identify a day and time where that facility would be able to serve specifically families with Alzheimer's and dementia.
So I would imagine that the difference is very homey and it's very casual. Like its setting is very. Is that I as soon as I hear you say restaurant, that's what is in my mind. Am I
Yes.
right or am I wrong?
Well, what we seek is a restaurant that would have a back room
Okay,
because a back room would be important for
right.
some privacy
That's right.
among the family members who may
Okay,
be dealing with a difficult person, loved one,
right.
in the disease.
Yeah.
And this happens with all special needs people, too, for that matter, is that sometimes it's an embarrassing situation that occurs. And what we're trying to do is train the staff
Mm-hmm.
on what's different. How
Right.
do you approach a person who has dementia?
Right.
How do you talk to a person?
Right.
How do you give them the respect that they deserve and have a family have a great experience
Yeah.
out when we've been now locked up for now over a year?
Right. I think that's brilliance because yeah, you are absolutely right. You don't want a busy cooking dinner while mom's visit or with mom or with dad or with anyone. But if the staff is taking care of all the food and all you have to do just spending quality time with your loved one in an environment that is privacy and is no other disturbance of different people looking at, that is a brilliant idea. I think you will do very well once we
Well,
go back to normal.
I have gotten a lot of support, some of it from the Senior Resource Alliance here in Orlando.
Hmm.
Also, I've gotten great support from the Alzheimer's and Dementia Resource Center, who have been really helpful in doing the training.
Hmm.
And so we are trying to work with the Dementia Care and Cure Initiative, which is supported by Elder Affairs in the state of Florida,
Right,
to create dementia friendly communities.
right.
And so this is our approach of making that happen on at least a small scale,
Hmm.
but yet an important scale because it improves the quality of life that you had already talked about, Leah.
Right. Well, I just want to say, I think Sarah and I are so appreciative for you to appear on here. This is what resilience is. You get knocked down and you find a way to come around and do something better than the situation that you're stuck in. And Dennis here has been done several. I mean, creating a libraries, a legacy for your wife, and then with the restaurant initiative, and then all the movement from the article that changing the law. So he's not only resilient, but he's fighting back with whatever he didn't think that is good for his family and for many, many other families. So
Right.
thank you so much, Dennis.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
You're welcome. And you pave the white road for the future
Yeah.
family that struggle with this situation.
There's a lot of great idea over there. So we wish you the best of success. And it's a pleasure, really pleasure to talk to you and also to hear your story. And thank you for sharing with us and with our audience.
Great. Thanks for having me again.
Thank
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone. I'll see you on Monday, Sarah. Oh my God, yeah, it's the end of the week. Go out and celebrate and have fun and enjoy the sun. Um,
Yeah.
it
Hey,
is the weekend.
tomorrow, I'll see you tomorrow. We will celebrate.
Oh yeah, tomorrow. Yes, I have an event for my book launch. My second, not second book, but I'm a part of that 25 authors that they're featuring and they're launching. Supposed to launch in February 26th, but somebody got COVID, so we pushed it back to March 26th. Thank you for reminding me, Sarah, because I totally forgot. And I'm very, very excited that even during COVID, we still can achieve things and do great things. And I get the chance to see Sarah again. This is going to be my second time meeting her. We've been meeting here like every day for almost a year. But tomorrow at 5:30 to 8:30, we're going to meet at the Red Door number 5 in Tampa Bay area. So if anyone out there want to come out for networking, just show up at 5.